This right here is fucking hilarious. This is the best wrestling tweet of 2018, man. Now, if you're a video gamer like I am, obviously you see the God of War meme there, and Kratos choking out this unnamed individual within the game. I don't think he has a name yet, or if he does, I might have forgotten it. But Kratos draws comparisons to Tommaso Ciampa, more notably Triple H. But Tommaso Ciampa is a very, very close second place there. And this unnamed individual looks like and resembles Aleister Black. And I even said that in part 1 of my God of War walkthrough for the PlayStation 4. You guys can go back and watch that on my channel. This looked like Tommaso Ciampa and Aleister Black. But that's not the most important aspect of this tweet. It's the context and the timing of it that is most important. This is something that we have been talking about on Off the Script. This is something that we've been talking about each and every week when we review NXT. This is the direction WWE needs to go. Whether this is a foreshadowing of what is to come with the next set of tapings, which I think are this week, this needs to happen. The Gargano fairy tale is over. Time for the next chapter. Hello, at Aleister, at WWE Aleister. It needs to happen. You don't know how important that tweet is, and the mere coincidence of it yesterday, and the importance of it. You don't know what it's going to do to enhance the already amazing storyline that we're getting with Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. You got to look at the landscape of NXT right now. Aleister Black is playing second fiddle to this feud. The NXT Championship is playing second fiddle to Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. There is no one else on the roster ready for Aleister Black. Almas was brought up to SmackDown Live. I made a mention that they should have never brought him up. They should have at least gotten one more match out of Andrade against Aleister Black. Lars Sullivan was put in his direction more as a trial run, if you ask me. Lars was not ready for that. But they did deliver a solid main event at Takeover, or an NXT Championship match, rather. It wasn't the main event, at Takeover Chicago. It was solid enough. It got the job done. Lars continues to get better, but we've seen Aleister Black in more, I would say, substantial situations. We've seen him look a lot better on NXT television. Outside of Lars, the way Lars has been built up, there really is nobody right now that could challenge Aleister Black. You look at EC3, probable world title contender down the line, not ready yet. Adam Cole, probably ready at this point, but he is the North American champion. Ricochet, you could give it to Ricochet, but it would be deemed too soon. He needs to work a little bit harder for it. So giving him a title match right now may deliver a dream match with Aleister Black, but it ain't the right time for Ricochet. Velveteen Dream, you could make an argument for Velveteen Dream, but people are going to look at the fact that he hasn't won the big match at the big takeover events yet. So why are you going to give the world title opportunity to somebody who really hasn't gotten a win for himself when it really matters? There's only one man outside of Johnny Gargano, and Johnny Gargano right now is out. We're not going to be seeing Johnny for a couple of weeks. He's recuperating from his injuries. The mental and physical anguish that the guy is probably going through per storyline right now needs to be showcased on television. The guy had his wedding ring thrown away and spit on. The guy let himself get beaten because of his own emotional turmoil, because he wanted to destroy Tommaso Ciampa so badly that Tommaso Ciampa seen one sliver of an opening, and he beat him. He beat Johnny because Johnny was an emotional wreck. Johnny beat himself, and Tommaso Ciampa just took advantage of that. There's only one man right now that you could put against Aleister Black that would not only mean the most, but it would get Aleister Black back on momentum, on a swing of momentum. It would put the NXT Championship in the main event. Tommaso Ciampa has been a main event act since he's come back A lot of that has to do with the 5-star match machine, Johnny Gargano. But that doesn't take away from what Tommaso Ciampa is doing on his own. He is the legit biggest and best heel in all of WWE right now, and he has done everything to perfection, brilliantly. Aleister Black has played second fiddle to the NXT Championship. He's been spotlighted below the main event for the duration of his NXT Championship reign. You got to get the NXT Championship back in the main event. You put him against Tommaso Ciampa. It's not only going to get the NXT Championship in the main event, it's going to get Aleister Black on a road to rebuilding that momentum, because Tommaso Ciampa will undoubtedly be the hottest opponent that he will go up against. And Tommaso Ciampa is doing such a great job at what he's doing. Aleister Black will feel special again because of how great Tommaso Ciampa has been. That babyface Aleister Black that we all fell in love with will be back because he'll be in the ring staring Tommaso Ciampa face to face. It needs to happen. It needs to happen not only for Aleister Black, not only for the NXT Championship, not only for Ciampa, but it needs to happen because it is undoubtedly the biggest situation you could possibly ever conceive for Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa in Brooklyn. How great of a story would it be if Tommaso Ciampa is so cocky in himself that he finally got rid of Gargano in the way that he did? That he thinks Johnny is gone. And now he goes after the world title, in which Johnny never got an opportunity against Aleister Black for. He was promised one, and Ciampa took that away from him. How great would it be to beat Johnny in Chicago, take his wedding ring, disrespect his family and his marriage, beat him in Chicago, and then take the title away from Aleister Black, and take the title that has eluded Johnny Gargano this entire year? How great would NXT be if Tommaso Ciampa was your NXT champion? Can you imagine the level of heat that this guy will see? Even more so than he's getting now, which is fucking even crazy to think about. How great it would be to have NXT led by him as the NXT champion going into Brooklyn against Johnny Gargano, and that match happens inside of a steel cage, a Hell in a Cell, 3 stages of hell, whatever match you want to conjure up for those two. It may be a transitional championship run for Tommaso Ciampa, but that would definitely be the greatest transitional run of anybody I could even remember. Ever remember. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. That tweet got me a little excited yesterday, man. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and I wanted to show you guys how important that tweet is, how just, in sync that tweet is with everything that we talked about. It needs to happen. It definitely needs to happen, and I so hope that we get some fucking surprise way in which Tommaso Ciampa takes that championship. Because, like I said, it not only has to do with everything that I just talked about. Aleister Black doesn't even need the NXT championship. He doesn't need it. You could bring this guy to SmackDown Live after SummerSlam, and he would probably fit on that brand like a glove. He doesn't need to be in NXT. Aleister Black right now, even before he was awarded the title, was above the NXT championship. They gave him an unprecedented run. He was fucking great. He was untouchable. He didn't need the title to solidify himself in NXT. He was already there. You could have brought this guy to the main roster before WrestleMania. You didn't need to do that. So now, right now, you put the title on him, and it's like, it ain't going anywhere. Take the title off him and put the title where it matters most. Johnny wants the title. There's no greater story to tell than Tommaso to take that title and just add insult to injury again to Johnny. It's got to happen. So I wanted to show you that here on your NXT video for this Wednesday, man. I'm not going to do a review. I'm not going to do a review of the show. I'm going to give you the winners right here. War Raiders beat the Mighty. And we had Bianca Belair defeating Dakota Kai. I'm not even going to go over the matches. I'm not doing anything. Simply because they don't go anywhere as far as storyline progression. The War Raiders. Now, I don't know what the fuck's going on with the NXT Tag Team Championship situation. Before this week, I would have said, well, we're going to get Undisputed Era versus War Raiders in Brooklyn. I don't know what the fuck is going on. Leave it to NXT to throw a wrench into the gears of where we were possibly going. Right now, I don't know what the fuck's going on with the NXT Tag Team title situation. I'm not going to spoil it because I've already had it spoiled for me thanks to WWE's Twitter account. And if you are on social media, you will know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to ruin it for the rest of everybody. But tag team title situation right now isn't what it was coming out of Chicago. It's completely different with two men who I really didn't expect to beat Undisputed Era as your new tag team champions. But that may change going to Brooklyn. I don't know. All I know is whoever the champions are, War Raiders are going to be at the Barclays Center, and it's going to be a fucking war. No pun intended. But I can't wait to see what happens with that. Bianca Belair, we all know. Bianca's my girl. She's going on and upwards towards bigger and better things in NXT. She is going to be the best thing in the women's division when all is said and done. Believe me. Right now we got Kairi Sane and what I think is going to be the next challenger for Shayna Baszler going into Brooklyn. We got the Mae Young Classic coming up for a second year in a row. WWE, we had the Mae Young Classic last year. It was Kairi Sane versus Shayna Baszler. 1 year removed. Both women a lot more seasoned as far as the WWE way. So we're probably going to get that rematch in Brooklyn with both women who competed in the finals just a year better under the NXT banner, man. I think that's going to be the best situation for WWE to visit going into Brooklyn, and something that I'm very excited to see because it's been a long time, man. Coming out of the Mae Young Classic, Kairi Sane really hasn't felt special at all. She kind of felt special going into that first championship opportunity at Survivor Series weekend, but I don't think Kairi Sane since then has really played a factor into much of anything. So she's kind of on the up and up right now. I think they are finally going to position her as the NXT Women's Champion. And then we're going to get Kairi Sane versus Bianca Belair, which could very well be this year's Ember Moon versus Asuka when all is said and done. I can't wait to see what Bianca Belair does in a big match situation against a credible opponent like Kairi Sane, man. So we'll see what happens with that. That's my thoughts on where those two matches are probably going coming out of the pre-show matches in Chicago for Takeover. So what I'm going to do right now for you guys is I'm going to go over a bunch of news and notes coming out of Takeover instead of reviewing the show. So I wanted to give you guys a video and a podcast today on the NXT brand, and hopefully you guys are enjoying and do enjoy what I bring to you today instead of a traditional review, which will resume next week when we get the first set of new tapings heading towards SummerSlam weekend. But if you guys want to go check out what I've already done on the channel this week, man, Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live. Raw was awful. SmackDown was the best show of 2018 for the Blue Brand. If you guys want my thoughts on that, we got Ronda Rousey suspended. Dolph Ziggler won the Intercontinental Championship, plus my thoughts on Monday Night Raw from Monday. Also, that terrible Bobby Lashley and Roman Reigns promo showdown, which was embarrassing. So all my thoughts on Monday Night Raw live on the channel right now. Make sure you guys go and check that out. Rusev Day finally able to celebrate a momentous victory. He is the number one contender for the WWE title. He will be challenging AJ Styles at Extreme Rules in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I give you my thoughts on that. A bunch of storylines coming out of that great gauntlet match for the number one contendership for AJ Styles. Daniel Bryan was in there. Big E was in there. The Miz. We got Samoa Joe in there as well. Just great stuff. Lots of storylines coming out of that. Also, we have more situation with Carmella and Asuka, plus the Usos and Sanity. Sanity debuted on SmackDown Live. Go and check that stuff out live on the channel right now. Plus Money in the Bank, my Takeover thoughts from this past weekend. Off the Script was uploaded as well on Tuesday for part 3. A very rare Off the Script episode for a Tuesday, rounding out the weekend's news for part 3. Charles Robinson says Chicago and their fans are disrespectful and disrespected Roman Reigns and Jinder Mahal. Money in the Bank Sunday. If you guys want my in-depth thoughts on that situation, that is also live on the channel right now. All those videos will be linked in the top right corner in this video, so go check them out. Follow me on Twitter at JDFROMNY206. Hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell for notifications. You guys know the deal. WWE considering moving Lars Sullivan to the main roster after his match with Aleister Black at Takeover Chicago. Lars Sullivan failed to capture the NXT Championship from Aleister Black. Some people were surprised to see Sullivan pinned, especially with NXT officials pushing him as a monster heel. His pinfall loss put over Black and his finisher this weekend, but the big question is, what is next for Lars Sullivan after NXT TakeOver? According to the Wrestling Observer, WWE officials are considering a move to the main roster for Sullivan after Money in the Bank. Dave Meltzer is questioning if Sullivan can handle the main roster at this point. A lot of people would agree that he's not ready to be on Raw or SmackDown Live yet and needs more time developing in NXT for at least another 6 to 12 months. All too often, WWE officials make the decision to bring someone up too early. Their career suffers because WWE management judges them and makes assumptions about their skills and experience. Not to mention, Lars Sullivan's character is a cliche, just one-dimensional monster heel. It's not a role that lasts for years unless the performer knows how to evolve the character. Depending on how NXT officials are planning to book the show heading into Brooklyn, Lars Sullivan could bounce back after his loss to Aleister Black. His unbeatable aura is gone, but that doesn't mean he couldn't be effective in NXT's mid-card. There are a lot of baby faces for him to work with. Someone like Ricochet could really do well for Lars Sullivan. And heading into Brooklyn, Ricochet isn't really going to factor into any main event level championship matches. That could be a great feud awaiting Ricochet after he just defeated the Velveteen Dream. A lot would have to change for Sullivan to become someone to win the NXT Championship. The monster heel has been done so many times now, and it takes a unique take to last. That's going to be difficult for Sullivan with someone like Keith Lee coming into NXT with a lot more of an experience to him and a stronger following. If WWE officials want to move Lars Sullivan to the main roster after Money in the Bank, they better have a solid plan in place. I do agree to an extent that Lars Sullivan is very one-dimensional in this cliche monster role. But you really can't tell where he's going to be a year, 2 years from now. You know, I think he's doing very well for himself for someone who's come into the world of professional wrestling that had absolutely no experience whatsoever. The guy was featured at the Performance Center for the last 2 years. He's barely even grazed a year on WWE television for NXT. Not only to bring him up would be a mistake, but to just kind of cast this doubt over him already is not even fair. Look at where he was when he was just being featured on Lars Sullivan before he was even named Lars Sullivan. I don't remember the name that they were calling him. But he was more of a, hey, look at who we got in the performance, and it's this big muscle-bound freak. He wasn't even named Lars Sullivan. They renamed him Lars Sullivan. They gave him new attire, and he's been on TV as their resident monster. I said it last year. The way Lars Sullivan was performing and where he was headed. I still believe, and I still back up my statement, I think Lars Sullivan is going to be the Braun Strowman of 2018. He's going to be the Braun Strowman of NXT. Do not cast doubt on him yet. Is he perfect? Nobody's perfect. You can't expect him to be perfect coming out of the Performance Center with less than a year television. He's going to make mistakes. Give him an opportunity to learn. He has definitely shut a lot of people up within whatever boundaries WWE has given him. They put him in a ladder match, he shined in the ladder match. They put him in a fatal four-way for the number one contendership before Philadelphia, he shined in that. They put him in a main event spot here, or a co-main event spot with Aleister Black, and he made one mistake. More people are looking at that one mistake than the body of work that Lars Sullivan and Aleister Black did in Chicago. It wasn't the best match on the card. It was nowhere near the best match on the card. It wasn't even the fourth best match on the card. But you're not going to cast doubt on him. Give him an opportunity. For WWE to want to bring him to the main roster, that would kill not only Lars Sullivan and everything that he's worked for, it would kill his love for this business. You're not going to put Lars Sullivan on a Raw or on a SmackDown and expect him to succeed. A, he's got no following. Nobody's going to really take to him. He's got no charisma. He's got no personality. How do you expect him to develop that stuff mixed in with everybody else on the main roster and everybody else right now barely fighting for an opportunity to be in a major program? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Lars Sullivan has a lot to work out here. But what I see is coming along nicely. You can't rush something that has potential to be great. WWE wants to put the cookies in the oven, and they want the cookies to be done in 5 minutes. It's not going to happen that way. You're going to get a doughy mess. It's not going to be crunchy. It's not going to be crispy. It's not going to be fucking the taste of what you want it to be. Let it marinate for a second. Let it sit there for a second. You're not going to leave a steak marinating for 20 minutes. You want the marinated steak to sit in the refrigerator for a day or two, soak in the flavor before you pop it on the grill. Can't be doing this with these guys. Lars Sullivan is nowhere ready for the main roster. I would actually feel sorry for him if they moved him up. He needs to be in NXT for not only this year, but the majority of next year as well. You may be looking at SummerSlam next year to possibly bring up Lars Sullivan. You can't bring up these guys. There's no room as it is. None of these guys are going to make an impact on these shows. Look at Raw and the talent that they have. That show is terrible in its current state. No one is going to make an impact on that show the way it is. I would never stick anyone on that show to die miserably the way it is right now. SmackDown is 2 hours. You're not going to bring up a Lars Sullivan with a show that has Almas and Bryan and Orton, who's not even there right now, but is expected to be back. Styles. You got Samoa Joe. You got Rusev, who is fighting for a spot, who's finally getting his moment in the sun. The Miz. You know, you're not going to bring a guy like Lars Sullivan to an already stacked show. Jeff Hardy, Shinsuke Nakamura. You're not going to bring Lars Sullivan to a show like that and expect him to make an impact. There'll be no room for him. He may end up like Ty Dillinger. Who's this guy? He's big, he's muscly, he wears red tights, but who the fuck is he? He needs to develop a character. Right now, all we know of him is that, hey, he's big, he's tough, he's getting there, but you can't put him on the main roster right now. It would absolutely kill everything that this guy has worked for. Let him get more comfortable in his role and develop a fucking character. Who knows what we might see next year with Lars Sullivan? Triple H mentioned Lars Sullivan by name when they did the conference call. Lars Sullivan is a guy that is getting better. If he is not getting better week by week, month by month, with working, with guys like Aleister Black and Adam Cole and guys like that, then that's my fault, he says. So, to give Lars Sullivan, the benefit of the doubt, please do so. We will revisit this talk next year. And if Lars Sullivan is the very same in which you see him now next year, then we might be looking at someone who may never be ready. But give him the benefit of the doubt. He's come a long way with no experience. And from what I see, I'm enjoying what's going on. Give him time to develop. WWE, we already mentioned Keith Lee. How WWE plans to push Keith Lee on NXT. It was reported weeks ago Keith Lee's appearance during NXT TakeOver Chicago last week confirmed any reports about him signing with the company. A performer as unique, experienced, and talented as Keith Lee is going to be a force to be reckoned with on NXT programming. However, it may take some time for him to receive a bigger push. I would love to see Keith Lee versus Lars Sullivan. That would be a fucking showdown of beasts. We didn't really get that with Killian Dane. So, if Keith Lee is coming to NXT, you could probably guarantee that he's going to cross paths with Lars Sullivan sooner rather than later. After NXT TakeOver Chicago, Triple H took part in his usual media conference call and had quite a bit to say about Keith Lee's move to NXT. As transcribed by sources online and uploaded to various websites, this is what Triple H revealed about his plans to push Keith Lee on television. And I quote, "I think I'm going to let him land first. I saw Keith walk through the entranceway at the arena this afternoon. He stood on the same spot on the stage while we were there walking through rehearsals for probably an hour with just a blown away look on his face. I think it's going to be a minute before Keith Lee can land on the ground, but once he does, I'm expecting big things from Keith Lee. He's a phenomenal talent, big dude that should not be able to do the things that he does. He's a phenomenal talent. I can't wait to work with him, our team to work with him, to help him take everything that he has done so far and take it to a whole nother level." End quote. Obviously, Triple H is talking about the WWE style. He wants Keith Lee to get familiar with the WWE style. From there, they're going to establish him as an on-air persona. They're going to present him in their way to the WWE universe. There's some work to do coming from the independents. He may be the most talented fucking guy for his size on the indie circuit. But once you get into NXT, that's when the grooming starts. Theme music, entrance, look, character. Get used to the WWE way. He's not going to be able to do everything that he used to do on the independent circuits in NXT. He's going to have more freedom with Triple H to do what he wants to do. And when TakeOver events come, you know all the handcuffs are off. Because Triple H loves boasting about how are we going to top this one every single TakeOver. But they want to get him ready to a point where they could present him when the time comes. This is what we've created in NXT. He's ready for the big show. That's what NXT is for. And that's what Triple H wants to do. Once Keith Lee gets comfortable and settled in NXT, he's going to do some great things for the brand in the next couple of months. Now, it's probably not going to take a long time before we see Keith Lee. Normally with these introductions at TakeOver, he was in the crowd during TakeOver. He got a standing ovation from all the smart marks in Chicago. But we've seen the same with Bobby Roode. We've seen the same with Ricochet. We've seen the same with EC3. It wasn't before long, and Ricochet and EC3 were already established talents. There's no reason to keep these guys away from television. When they're already established talents, they are ready to go. They don't need much grooming, you know, so for an in-ring style. They don't need much grooming. Keith Lee probably doesn't need much grooming as well, but they're going to want to sit him down and establish where he is going and what type of character he's going to portray on television. The guy is ready to go. So I expect him to possibly sit out these set of tapings and show up at the tapings before we finally get into Chicago. He may be, not Chicago, Brooklyn. He may be in Brooklyn. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that yet. But it's not going to be long before we see Keith Lee on television. WWE signed him for a reason. They're going to want to put him on television ASAP. I'm excited to see someone the size and athleticism of Keith Lee on NXT, man. Outside of Lars Sullivan, we don't really have that type of athlete of that size on the yellow brand. It's going to be a breath of fresh air. It's going to be great. And I think Keith Lee is going to bring a lot of great matches out of a lot of people down in NXT. Major update on Nikki Cross and her future in WWE. A lot of people are talking about Nikki Cross possibly making the main roster with Sanity sooner rather than later. Now that they're feuding with the Usos, a lot of people are pushing for Naomi to get involved with the Usos and then maybe bring up Nikki Cross and have Nikki Cross feud with Naomi, being that Sanity's feuding with the Usos. That is definitely a way to look at it. But at TakeOver Chicago, Nikki Cross was defeated by Shayna Baszler and failed to win the NXT Women's Championship. Their feud can continue into Brooklyn, but the expectation after TakeOver was that Cross would fall back to the mid-card. The powers that be may have much bigger plans for Nikki Cross than most people were expecting. According to a report from Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer is wondering if the former member of Sanity could rejoin the group on the main roster following Money in the Bank. The stable still hasn't debuted on SmackDown Live until yesterday. So they finally, after all these weeks, finally made their debut on SmackDown Live against the Usos. Cross is an interesting situation in NXT, so it could take a lot of sense. So it would make a lot of sense, rather, to debut them together instead of Nikki Cross just floating around in NXT with no real direction. So it would make sense for Nikki Cross to join Sanity on the main roster. It's not like NXT's women's division right now is bleeding and hemorrhaging for talent. If they move Nikki Cross, they have a lot of people in that division that could be, of a great addition. You got Candice LeRae who's there, Shayna Baszler, Kairi Sane. You got Bianca Belair. You got Rhea Ripley. Dakota Kai is there. It's not like they're missing Lacey Evans. It's not like they're hemorrhaging talent. So if they want to move Nikki Cross, then move Nikki Cross. Nikki Cross on her own is going to be a wrestler that's going to look kind of out of place, and there's not going to be really any direction for her. WWE tried their best in this interim phase with Shayna Baszler. What do you do with Nikki Cross after that? She doesn't fit into anything. She doesn't factor into anything right now. You're better off just putting her on the main roster. She's ready for the main roster. Her boys in Sanity are there, and it would enhance the storyline that they're trying to probably tell with the Usos right now. Adding a female touch to that group would be beneficial. And having Naomi get involved, you give Naomi something to do, because she's not going to be factoring into any women's championship on SmackDown Live anyway. I think it would be great. I think that's what you got to do with Nikki Cross. Now, Nikki was left behind in NXT to help the roster. Now, she's lost to Baszler clean. There's not much more for her to do with the brand that will benefit her specifically. NXT officials could use her to help establish other women in the division, but that's not a role that make the unhinged gimmick work, since she's been using that since her debut. One of the biggest problems she's going to face with connecting with the WWE Universe, the unhinged character is kind of one-dimensional. It doesn't offer a deep level of storytelling. Honestly, it just doesn't showcase Cross's skills or personality properly. On the main roster, it will be difficult to get the casual people to understand the character. We in NXT enjoy it because we're a bunch of crazy fucks. How are you going to portray that to a 7-year-old, 8-year-old girl sitting in the crowd and they see Nikki Cross fucking going berserk in the ring, eating the ropes and fucking screaming all over the place? It's better than Carmella screaming, but, seeing Carmella and Nikki Cross in the ring being portrayed to a 7-year-old girl is night and day. Many people probably will not get the gimmick, and they probably won't take to the gimmick. Who the fuck knows? You never know unless you try. But if she's with Sanity, then it may work. Nikki Cross hasn't been booked strongly in NXT. It might take a big gimmick change or just to be featured more strongly moving forward. Whatever needs to be done, Cross getting over on the main roster is going to be challenging if that's what WWE has planned for her after this week. Finally, guys, we'll end with this, which is another thing similar to Lars Sullivan. I am not ready for this to happen. I don't think he's ready for it to happen, and it's way too soon. This is definitely a steak marinating for a short period of time and not getting the full flavor of the marinade in that steak. Now I'm hungry for fucking barbecue. Main roster call-up for Velveteen Dream is now being talked about after NXT TakeOver Chicago. Patrick Clark debuted in NXT as the Velveteen Dream. I didn't like him at first. A lot of people thought the gimmick was too weird to be successful. However, he's made such an impact over the past year. He's received so much praise from his peers. John Cena has specifically given him praise, and the WWE Universe sees him as a potential major player down the line. He is even a pet project right now of Shawn Michaels. His match with Ricochet is a perfect example of what the Velveteen Dream is capable of inside the ring. Despite the huge loss, Dream's stock continues to rise. You gotta be careful though, because you can't have him go into these matches and lose every single time. You don't want him to become the Tyler Breeze of NXT for 2018. WWE officials may have seen enough of him to bring him to the main roster following Money in the Bank weekend. According to the Wrestling Observer radio show, Velveteen Dream was already on the list. He was already on the list of potential main roster call-ups after WrestleMania. The problem is WWE officials see him as a potential big star, so his main roster debut on Raw or SmackDown Live is going to be a huge deal. Dave Meltzer questions if WWE officials should wait just a little bit longer. With NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 4 coming up in 2 months, there are plenty of options for his next feud. He could challenge Adam Cole for the North American Championship or feud with EC3, who is in desperate need of a rivalry right now. It's also possible Dream versus Ricochet could continue heading into Brooklyn. A lot of people would appreciate that. At the age of 22, and if you need all the reason in the world why you shouldn't bring him up to the main roster, 22 is a baby. He hasn't even scratched the fucking surface. Nowhere near it. He is this good already. Can you imagine him with another year or two under his belt at the age of 24? You could imagine the damage this guy is going to do and how important he's going to be when he does get called up in the right situation. Right now, it'll be the same thing with Lars Sullivan. What do? Oh, great. Velveteen Dream is on the main roster. All these matches that we could see. Are people going to understand the gimmick? Probably not. Are they going to appreciate the gimmick? Probably not. So leave him to marinate just a little bit more and have more people potentially grow to love Velveteen Dream and get excited about what he is trying to do. There's no reason for WWE officials to push him too quickly. He's been red hot for the past few months, but there's plenty of him to accomplish, there's plenty for him, rather, to accomplish in NXT before the Velveteen Dream takes over Raw or SmackDown Live. However, WWE officials may have seen something specific for him. If he's set to debut, it will happen before SummerSlam. I hope not. I truly hope not, man. You know, the whole talk about the North American Championship, you know, Adam Cole is not going to be North American Champion for forever. You know, when Johnny Gargano wins the NXT Championship and he needs his first opponent, I'm looking to no one else besides Adam Cole. Adam Cole was ready for the NXT Championship when Drew McIntyre was the champion. So WWE gave him the North American Championship in the interim. He ain't going to hold that belt for too much longer. Who do you think deserves that belt more than anybody in the mid-card on that roster? This belt was made for someone like Velveteen Dream. If Velveteen Dream is going to go for a championship, if he's going to remain in NXT, that North American Championship would look fucking stunning around his waist. That's what you're doing for Brooklyn. You're giving me Gargano and you're giving me Ciampa for the NXT Championship. You're giving me Adam Cole versus Velveteen Dream for the North American Championship. War Raiders probably against Undisputed, if that happens, in Brooklyn. You're going to give me Ricochet versus Lars Sullivan in Brooklyn. And whatever women's match, Shayna Baszler versus Kairi Sane for the Women's Championship. That's my takeover card for Brooklyn. That is my takeover. I don't know what you do with EC3, man. EC3 may be shit out of... EC3 may be the Adam Cole right now for NXT. I don't see anything for EC3 right now. I honestly think EC3 is going to be the man who is shit out of luck, and it's not even his fault. It's not even his fault. He can perform as good as he can. I would not necessarily think it's a bad thing that he's not on TakeOver. It's just NXT right now is so stacked with talent, that these spots on TakeOver are very, very hard to come by. And if you really want to put him on TakeOver, then put him against Keith Lee. You know, give Keith Lee that first big opponent at TakeOver, if they want to do that. I don't know. But that's my TakeOver card right there, man. I think that's where we're headed. If I was to take a logical guess, that's where I think we go with TakeOver. Velveteen Dream is 22 years old. There's no reason to put him on SmackDown Live or Monday Night Raw. Can you imagine Velveteen Dream on Monday Night Raw? Can you imagine them mistreating him like they mistreated everything else? Like, look at everybody else that's come from NXT right now. Who really is succeeding? Who really is succeeding? You really can't put the finger on anybody. I would not want that for Dream. He's too good. It's too different. You know, I would even keep Dream down in NXT with that North American Championship. You know, John Cena wants to come out and brag about how Dream is going to be the next big thing in WWE. You know, I have made mention of WWE talent right now that's on the main roster. More notably, The Revival. I'd love to see The Revival challenge for the NXT Championship. Can you imagine The Revival versus Undisputed Era or The Revival versus War Raiders? Are you fucking kidding me? There's no reason why these guys need to be wasted away, jobbed out to Roman Reigns and Jinder Mahal. No reason. What about Breezango or Tyler Breeze? What about John Cena coming down to NXT and wrestling a match at TakeOver? Can you imagine what it would do for Velveteen Dream if he, before he gets called up, has a match with John Cena at TakeOver? John Cena puts him over? Can you imagine that? I can. I think that would be fucking massive. Not only for Cena, first time ever in NXT, but for Velveteen Dream to drop the purple Rainmaker across John Cena's chest and pin him 1, 2, 3. Velveteen Dream should be nowhere near the main roster right now. I see North American Championship gold in his future, and then Adam Cole moves up to the NXT Championship. Johnny Gargano is going to need that big-time heel, if you don't even want to consider him that big-time heel to go one-on-one with coming out of the gate. Adam Cole versus Johnny Gargano for the NXT Championship. Take my fucking money right now, dude. Can you imagine the crowd for that type of match? Man, NXT is fucking rocking and rolling. I can't wait to see what they do going into the rest of the year and into Brooklyn, man. That is your video, man. That is all the news I got for NXT. No review tonight for the matches because they were quick, they were pointless, they didn't mean anything to storyline. We'll pick it up next week for NXT heading into TakeOver Brooklyn number 4. I'll see you guys maybe tomorrow with some off-the-script extra, man. I got some little news stories floating around. I might see you guys tomorrow with a little podcast, 20 minutes or so tomorrow on the channel, and then we'll head towards Off the Script for Friday, episode 227, where we're going to round out the weekend's news and rumors, as always, like we do every single weekend. Thank you guys so much. Hit that thumbs up. Follow me on Twitter, at JDFROMNY206. Hit that subscribe button down below, and I will see you guys tomorrow with more content right on the channel. I'll talk to you later.